Hey, what's going on, guys? Hey, welcome to the Ripple Effect Podcast. I am your host, Steve Harper, and I am back with another fascinating interview. A ripple that created a ripple. It seems like this is happening more and more. I am super, super grateful for it.
I had a lot of feedback over the years in corporate, and a lot of the feedback was what I could fix. And what we fail to do is look at people and understand what's right. What is right about you and what is working, and how can we optimize that and draw that out of you in a way that creates a better organization for everybody. I think that where we are is many, many years of people get really nervous about performance reviews because they're like, oh, I'm going to hear what I'm doing wrong.
I met Jennifer Hutchinson last year. We had her on the podcast. She was fascinating, just an amazing coach. And just out of the blue one day, I get an email and she said, hey, from one Jennifer to another Jennifer. Actually, this one is Jen Newbill, but I think you and Jen need to know each other. Jen had recently left corporate America and started her own coaching practice. And she was like, I just think there's a vibe. I think you guys are going to get along. And boy, was she right. Jen is actually a really, really fascinating and new emerging coach. She is got her practice is called New Day Coaching with Jen Newbill. And she is focused on helping leaders understand how to lead, inspire, and perform and create lasting impact for your colleagues, for your team, for yourself. And I'm so grateful because she has a very unique approach to how she's approaching her coaching. When we got together to just get acquainted, we were talking about all things corporate. We were talking about the impact on the environment, culture, all the things that are happening with AI. And I think we were scheduled for a 30-minute conversation. It lasted well beyond that. We probably could have gone for another couple of hours. We were jamming that much, but I'm so grateful she agreed to be a part of the Ripple Effect podcast. And so with no further ado, let's dive into this interview with Jen Newbill. Guys, I'm super excited to invite Jen Newbill to the Ripple Effect podcast. Jen, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. I got all of my Christmas shopping and wrapping done.
That's impressive. Now that we will actually premiere this episode after the holidays, but everybody that will hear it will be like, "No, I'm not sure I like her." No, I'm just kidding.
I'm jealous.
I'm still trying to figure out how to get all my stuff in from Amazon just so that it will be here by Christmas. So, but it sounds like you're ahead of the game, which is really good.
Yes, I'm ahead. I'm ready.
That's good. That's good. So I am super excited for this interview because you and I, we were introduced by Jennifer Hutchinson. She thought we would connect, and we absolutely did when you and I had our Zoom. And I think you and I could have gone several hours just talking about all things coaching, corporate environment, AI, all the great, the great things that you and I really like to geek out on. So I was super excited that you agreed to be on the podcast because I feel like my Ripplers really, really need to know you, need to know about your coaching. And so by way of just introduction, who is Jen Newbill?
Jen Newbill is a 25 plus year experienced HR leader. So I spent a lot of time in corporate environment, and I have transitioned. So 2025 was a year of transition and evolution and transformation for me. And I'm now a coach. So I coach individuals and teams. I am a Clifton Strengths certified coach. I think it's a great tool. I'm also really deeply passionate about values and emotional intelligence, and I think including those, especially in team sessions, is really helpful. I'm a big fan of Brené Brown. So I have people out there that I follow and I read all of their books and I listen to their podcasts. And I'm also a yoga teacher. So I teach yoga a couple times a week. I'm trained to teach meditation, breath work, and I also provide sound. So I have the quartz bowls and all of the woo-woo stuff because I really believe, and I talk to some of my clients about this, that managing our nervous systems day over day and creating healthy routines are very important, especially going into 2026. People are stressed. People's nervous systems are out of whack. So I think combining things like breath work, exercise, time in nature, whatever fuels you, whatever your passions are, woodworking, whatever it is really important to be focused and optimize in the workspace.
I love the fact that you focus on that in not just from a coaching perspective, but kind of a whole person perspective, right? Both the mental and the physical aspects of the stresses that we deal with on a daily basis. And you touched on that when you and I talked. I'm curious, was that something that you sort of always had in your back pocket in your corporate career? Or was that something you had to learn to adapt and create in your own space? And then you're like, oh my gosh, once I figured this out, I need to share and educate people on the value of this.
I would say the latter. I've been a yoga practitioner probably for over 30 years. So I've always loved the practice of yoga. And it's really common for people who have a practice like that to come and go. Maybe their studio closes. COVID was really difficult for people to get together, but I found an incredible studio here in Austin, Texas, where they have an outdoor space. So I
Oh,
stumbled upon
wow.
this place. It was actually a friend of mine who said, "Hey, there's an outdoor space, try it." I fell in love with it. I have a community there. It's the kind of place where you walk in and people like cheers, they know your name. And I think that's really important, social connection outside of work as well as inside of work. To feel connected to other people is really vital. I went through my training at that studio and I'm going there later this afternoon. So it's a big part of my life. At that time, it was COVID. I felt like a transformation happening within me. I had a lot of anxiety and nervous energy. I was like, okay, where can I take this for myself? And then after I went through training, the question was, how can I share this with other people? It's really powerful and impactful to have a practice and to be able to help other people.
Oh, I love that. So what is it that just for your own fulfillment, what is it that you get out of yoga? Because I think there are a lot of folks that, myself included, I've tried it a few times. I think I feel like a fish out of water when I'm trying it. So going to a class, I'm like super insecure, and but I get the understanding and appreciation of the practice because it's very
Yes.
intentional. It's very self-fulfilling in a lot of ways, different than, pumping iron or, running on a treadmill, et cetera. But what is it for you that really speaks to you about it? And what did it bring to your life? And, how did it in sort of inform that, hey, I want to now go teach this?
The practice of yoga, when it comes to the asanas, which are the postures, is only what they call one limb. There's 8 limbs of yoga. So it includes breath, it includes, um, seva. So seva is service. So always thinking of ways that you can engage and connect with others both on and off the mat in a way that's healthy, in a way that builds community, in a way that builds positivity around you. So the practice on the mat, I've had profound moments. I've had moments where literally everybody in the room and I are moving completely in sync and our breath is completely in sync and you're just like almost in awe. But that's only part of the practice of yoga. It's really a lifestyle. And it's profoundly changed me. Going through my 200-hour training certification, I shifted. There was a shift in my being and how I operate. And then as things were changing within my corporate environment, it became very clear I wanted a shift in my career. And coaching is something that I had thought about for quite some time. So it just all flowed and all happened pretty seamlessly. So I'm very grateful for that.
I love that. And you inspire me, and I think others to look a little bit deeper into yoga. So we'll definitely have to put a link on the show notes to your class for those that are in Austin. We have quite a few folks that tune into the show from Austin that could come check it out. I would be as long as you don't call me out as the most uncoordinated individual you've ever seen in your entire life, I will come to your class. How about that?
I would never do that. And I will say I've taught from 5 years old to 80 years old.
Oh,
And
well,
so
good.
I've
So
seen all sorts, yeah, I've seen every kind of mobility challenge and what individualism is my number two Clifton strength, which I think I bring to my coaching as well
yeah.
as my teaching. We all have different bodies. And my teacher that taught me said some things are skeletal. Like you just can't get into this pose and that's okay. And that's why we use things like props. So there's blocks, there's straps, and people are kind of scared of them, like, ugh, I don't want to have to use anything. I love props. I'm their number one fan, and you can bring the floor up closer to you and move into something. Why not ask for help? And I think a lot of people resist that. So I encourage, ask for help, use a prop. Our bodies are different, our backgrounds are different, our false beliefs or narratives that we're working with are different. And so I use that both in my teaching as well as my coaching.
I love that. And you actually make a perfect segue because use what is in front of you, use what is helpful to you to get the best possible result, which I have to think is why you chose coaching, right? And why folks that need or seek out a coach really are starting to reach for that help. And so talk about how you kind of seamlessly approach that from a perspective of working with an individual or a team, and how that same mindset and that same approach really informs how you
Mhm.
coach.
Yeah, so I use Clifton Strengths, and I think that's a great. It's an assessment, and I think it's a great tool to really start to root into how do you operate naturally. And I can do that with an individual. A lot of times they'll talk about family members and things beside work colleagues or their manager will come up in conversations on an individual basis. On a team basis, we'll definitely point out, you can have like a little table tent and people will be like, oh, your number one is focus. I coached with an executive team here in Austin a couple of months ago. And even when I saw his report, I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Everybody's results are different and it's
Yeah.
fascinating. And then what you do is you can put up on a grid and you could plot it out and you could say, okay, as a team, is there a specific domain where maybe you have more strengths? This particular group was really high in influencing, but they were lowest in relationship building. So then it turns into a discussion of, okay, your influencing means you're cheerleading, you have lots of energy, you can influence, your board, you can influence your customers, your clients, your partners, but are you connecting with people one-on-one and checking in on them? Are your employees maybe struggling with some burnout or some other things? So that's where the evolution of the conversation went with from a team perspective is you collect all of the responses from the assessments and then you see where you as a leadership team and how could this maybe impact the organization. So it's a little bit of a different lens when you have 8, 10, 12 people in the room, but it also can be really powerful.
I love how you
Yeah.
approach that because I think, especially for a leader who might be out there, and we have a lot of corporate leaders that listen to this podcast, the value of understanding not only yourself as a leader and how you show up and perform
Mhm.
at work is invaluable, but the ability for you to know how you participate and plug into the team that you've gone out and invested in, you've brought them in, and why would you not want to understand what's the best way that I can align with these people? Where can I put them in for where there is a better or more natural fit for their skill sets, their abilities, their interests, their likes, their wants, and how to
Mhm.
balance the team. If you think about trying to put together any kind of sports team, it's about putting the right people in the right positions to perform. And it blows me away. And you and I
Mhm.
talked about this when we first met, about how many organizations don't actually take the time to understand, hey, do we have the right people? Do we have the right people in the right seats on the bus? Are we maximizing their value? Are we supporting them in the most positive way that we can? And if you have a leader that doesn't understand how they show up in the workplace or how they are performing as a leader, then it's
Mhm.
really hard for them to, sort of mesh really well. And so I loved the way that you talked about how you approach that, because it's so critical for an
Yeah.
executive team to understand the positives, their negatives, their areas of improvement, their genius, and then how that aligns with
Mhm.
the folks that are actually, downstream from them, so that you can have a more cohesive team. For a leader who's like, I have not thought about doing that, talk a little bit about
Mhm.
why you think that is even more important in today's society, or more today, in today's work environment, because it is so challenging and struggle focused right now in corporate America.
I had a lot of feedback over the years in corporate. And a lot of the feedback was what I could fix. And what we fail to do is look at people and understand what's right. What is right about you and what is working, and how can we optimize that and draw that out of you in a way that creates a better organization for everybody. So I think that where we are is many, many years of people, people get really nervous about performance reviews because they're like, oh, I'm going to hear what I'm doing wrong. And it doesn't mean that we can't give feedback around opportunities, but really focusing on what's doing right. Organizations that do that and that have Clifton strengths are between 7 and 9% more productive and more profitable. It actually makes sense. Gallup has a ton of really groovy data. Input's my number three. So I love data and facts and information. And when it helps fuel the work that I do, it just makes sense. So I would say for a leader, understanding where your strengths are, how are you leveraging them? How are you maybe not? I've had a couple of clients say, oh, I didn't even think about the fact that this is a natural talent of mine. There is sometimes I see some people have very high strengths that get a little troublesome. So we can overuse some of our strengths. So being mindful of that, a good example would be communication. Communication in your top five is incredible. Words come very easily to you. Writing comes very easily to you. Could also talk over people, right? So it's being mindful of how are you using these natural talents and how can you harness them to where they're actual strengths. So you have to put some work into understanding and then aiming. They call it claiming and aiming in Gallup. And that's where a coach is really handy. So, yeah, that's what I would tell a leader.
I love that. So because you come from a corporate environment, this is a big shift for you to move from, that type of arena into this entrepreneurial arena, which hats off to you for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited for what the future holds for you. But
Yeah.
what do you see now being kind of an outsider from the corporate environment now as a coach and in this more strategic role that you've created for yourself with your coaching practice? Where do you see the gaps for big companies? And, obviously we could talk specifically to the leadership about where the issues are, but why do you think a lot of the big companies fail to put the emphasis and the resources and the investment behind these types of services like you offer?
I think it's a great question, and I really don't know why, because the data is there to support
Yeah.
investing in your employees' strengths makes sense. It's you make more money, you have happier employees, they stay longer. The data is there. It feels like investments in employees are one of the first things that are cut. And I saw it in my last organization where I spent over 2 decades. I had a great experience. But the last couple of years I was there, it was all about savings. And it was, we were cutting programs in HR, we were cutting a lot in marketing. And I feel like there's not a long term enough approach within corporate. It's very quarter to quarter, it's very year over year. It's very much about the shareholders and the stock market. And it's very reactionary, in my opinion. And I feel like organizations that really invest in their employees and their employee base for the long run, they're the organizations that I would love to work with, but also the organizations that don't have these kind of programs and are asking themselves, what can we do that's different? Why are we seeing high attrition? A lot of my individual clients tell me I don't feel invested in. That's a very common theme, and it's something that can be addressed quite easily through something like strengths.
So let me ask you that question. So if I'm a leader or I'm a employee of a company, small, big, doesn't matter. What does investment actually mean to both of those through both of those lenses?
I think for an individual, I find people want to one and done. They want to take their assessment and they maybe want to have one or two sessions with a coach. This is a process. You probably want to work for somebody for at least 12 months to really see a profound difference. And same with organizations. I could come in, I could do a strengths, review with your team. It's fun. That's one of the things about strengths is, yeah, you can rumble a little bit, right? You could talk about conflict resolution. You can kind of get into the weeds, but it's also fun to talk about strengths and to see how we're different and what we bring to the table. But really, multiple sessions over a period of time is where you're going to start to shift and see a difference. So I think we live in a culture, speaking of culture, where we want to one and done. We want to have a fix. We want to bring it in. We want to be done with it. No more investment. We're good. And the reality is the investment has to happen over time. And you have to plan for it year over year. And it's just part of how you run the business.
I love that answer. I set you up with that answer for or that question because I really wanted to dive into something that really stood out to me when I first met you, which was staying power. Right at the end of the day, I think that what makes you very unique and how you approach this is that you don't want to be the one and done. It's not a parlor trick, and I think one of the reasons I asked the question the way I did through both lenses is as an individual, it's easy for us to do these assessments. Oh, that's interesting, and move on. You have to use that assessment to really understand really how you are as a teammate, a colleague, a leader, how you apply it to your work, how you apply it to your problem solving, your personal relationships, how you show up every single day, your enthusiasm, motivation. In the same kind of context from a leadership or an organization perspective is true as well. The staying power there is that at the end of the day, if you're just going to bring it in as a parlor trick, then it's no different than bringing in a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
Everybody for the day may get riled up and like excited, and then that wears off the minute they get back to their desk and they've got the voicemail light flashing and they've got 300 emails, right? And there's no staying power to that.
I agree. And I think things like visual cues. So these are all of my top strengths. I put my bottom 5 on the back because I ignore them. But sometimes having a visual cue or reminder for an individual or even for a team is really important because, and I just wrote a LinkedIn blog post about this. Object permanence means an idea, a concept, a thing is something that we forget about when we don't always see it. It's not always in front of us. So you're making a really cool point here, Steve, is that you go to the event, you have the session, people cry, they're high-fiving. I mean, it's cool. And then the next day they forget. What's great about one of the organizations I'm working with is I check in. I'm like, okay, when are we ready for our next session? So we're going to meet after the new year again. Like, we got to keep this ball rolling. And I asked the VP of people, are you talking about your strengths? And she said, we talk about them every day. So talking about them, having a common language, bringing it into the conversation, visual cues to remind you, what are my top 10 again and what order are they? That is something that we also need to include in these sessions to say this isn't one and done. This is a shift for the organization and it's over the long run. And that's where you start to see the power.
Yeah, I think the power for an organization, for any leader that's out there, if you are really committed to doubling down and improving employee satisfaction in 2026, actually furthering your goals and objectives by better client acquisitions, happier customer service experiences, more sustainable growth. All of that comes down to your ability to invest in your people. And you have to have a game plan and a strategy. And one of the places to start, like Jen is saying, is understand who you have on the bus with you and how you're operating and driving that bus to make sure that you've got maximum velocity and efficiency. And that starts with understanding who are my key players. How do we get along? How do we align? How do we work together? How do we overcome challenges or work through conflict? I think that one of the biggest problems for organizations is they turn a blind eye to it, and you probably know this better than most, Jen, right? They push that over to HR, deal with this, figure this out, or get us the quarterly, rah-rah sessions scheduled. And to hear you speak, and ultimately the reason I brought it up in the first place is if that's the way that you're approaching it from an organization perspective, you're already missing the mark.
There's just huge opportunity here. And I feel that organizations are really focused on a lot of bottom line. And I get it. You need revenue, you need to make your shareholders happy. But in the long run, you will see a lot of positive momentum if you truly invest in your employees. And it's the common language. There are organizations that are Clifton Strengths organizations where everybody has like a magnet. that has their top 5 on their cube, or they have a mug. This is a what's your strengths mug, but they also have mugs where you have your number 1 or your top 5. And it just becomes part of the culture. And I think if you can drive strengths within a culture all the way down, you can even have new employees come in and take the assessment as part of their onboarding. And then they immediately feel invested in, because they get results. Maybe they get like a coaching session where it's like, hey, this is what the results mean. What questions do you have? You're going to hear this all the time. It's really important to us to leverage what you bring to the table in a positive way, as opposed to constantly telling the employees, this is what you need to fix, right? You're not good at this. Well, if it's in your bottom 5 or even really in your bottom 10, it's probably not going to change. This is part of your DNA and your makeup and who you are. One thing that's also really powerful in a team setting, one person could be really high in focus and another person could be really high in like communication or woo. And you could partner people together very intentionally to say, this would be really powerful for this particular program or project. So it's also about teaming people and being really proactive about who is on a project team, as opposed to, oh, we like these people. This is the project team. I mean, it can become pretty haphazard, and I've seen that. I've been added to project teams where I'm like, why am I here? What am I bringing to the table? So even bringing a project team together and saying, here's the map of your strengths. Here's what we need you to help shift or evolve or innovate for the organization. That could really be powerful as well.
I love that. Let's shift gears for a sec. I mean, we're talking about what you do and why you do it. But I think that my audience, it would also be fascinated about the motivation from you leaving corporate America to do something on your own. What has been the most surprising thing as you that you've experienced as a fairly new entrepreneur?
Not surprising, but something that I didn't really spend a lot of time on initially was, how do I leverage my strengths to be an entrepreneur? Right? So you can leverage
Yep.
them in a corporate setting, you can leverage them in your life, and you can see my learner behind me. That's my number one.
Yep.
I read a lot, right? And so I have to leverage, what do I read and invest in that makes sense right now? And what do I set aside? Because it can also get troublesome. And I'm spending a lot of time strategic thinking, because strategic thinking is my domain. Out of my top 6, 5 are strategic thinking. So it really helps you map your day, manage your energy. And so I would say I didn't bring my strengths in until probably 4 or 5 months in. And then I had an aha moment of, why am I not doing this? But my reason for leaving corporate is I felt like I could add more value if I was on my own, which I realize sounds crazy, but I was in a position where I wanted to add value within my organization and I just didn't feel like I could. So there are probably other people that feel that way, maybe feeling stuck, maybe feeling constrained. And I thought the only way that I could really do what I want to do, what my calling is, leverage those strengths, is to go out on my own.
Well, and it's an alignment. You were finally at a point where it was time, right, to do something different. You felt like you could make a bigger ripple
Yeah,
out there in a bunch of different environments as opposed to
yeah,
just the corporate environment you were in. I love that. And it's one of the greatest motivators as an entrepreneur, is knowing that you have something to offer the greater world, not just your department or not just your team, or even just your organization. It's being able to expand it beyond. So let me ask you, as a fairly new entrepreneur, what would be the one book, book or two that you'd recommend somebody who might hear this interview, be inspired by you, and wants to go out and try their own thing? But what book would book or books would you recommend they read first?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I am starting a book right now called Talk Like Ted, and it's a book that leverages all of the learnings from TED Talks. So my communication is number 12. It's up there, but it's not super accessible top 5 or top 10. So I have to be really intentional. So that's a book that I've just started. I've actually read it, or recommended it to a couple of my clients. Susan Cain has a book called Quiet, And I think that is really helpful for people to understand if they're introverts or they're working closely with introverts, how introverts operate and work. And in Clifton Strengths, there is a strength called relator. And it's a relationship building strength, but it tends to be people that are more introverted and people that want to engage and connect one on one. So I think it's really helpful to understand your energy and how you engage and connect with people that's the most powerful for you. So that's an incredible book. I'm in between an introvert and extrovert. I sort of flip flop, but I have a lot of clients that are introverted that are like, can I be a powerful leader if I relate to people more on a one-on-one basis? How do I command a room? And one thing I tell people is you probably have really good listening skills, and that's something that's absolutely missing from corporate. So that's another thing that I think is an opportunity for teams is how do we build better listening that isn't I'm sitting and thinking about what I'm going to say next, but I'm deeply listening to what you're saying and connecting with you on a deeper level. So I think that's an opportunity as well.
I love that. Entrepreneurs, yeah, I'm asking a few questions that are a little bit different than I normally ask because I'm just so fascinated by your story. But as an entrepreneur, what's the one thing you would suggest not doing as a brand new entrepreneur?
Not doing, well, you have to have patience. So being impatient is something you shouldn't do to answer your question, because it takes time. And I am not the most patient person. So I left my organization in February and I thought by June, I had these goals. By June, I'm going to have this, 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 this. And I had some of this and I had made a lot of progress, but it's easy to get down on yourself or get critical of yourself in the first year or two. It can take 2, 3 years to truly build a business that reflects who you are. And that includes what is your visual identity? What is your messaging? And that's something that I've worked deeply on this fall is, I want a message that resonates and that's really aligned to my strengths, but also who I am as an individual. So give yourself time to think about your pitch, your marketing, your identity, and that takes some time. So I would say don't be impatient with yourself.
I love that. When you were contemplating making the jump, were you laying the groundwork for what was to come when you made the decision to leave? Because I think the advice you were just giving was sort of, before you make that complete leap, create the foundation and the structure for yourself, know what your message is, know what your offer, your value, so that when you do finally make the transition, you're ready. You can dive in with both feet. How much prep did you put into before you decided I'm leaving corporate America and I'm jumping into the entrepreneurial pool? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think, and to be completely candid, thinking about my messaging is something that happened after. And I wish that I
Okay,
had
that's
spent more
good.
time thinking about it before. I was in a I was in a coaching program. So I was really where I was prepping and laying the foundation is how do I need to shift how I hold space for other people as a coach? Because as a coach, one of the cardinal rules is you really shouldn't give people advice. And we give people advice in corporate all the time. Managers tell their
All the time.
employees all the time, you really should do this. Or have you thought about all the time? And a coach is avoiding giving advice. There is a deeper level of listening. They're listening for certain cues, maybe metaphors. You're changing the way you communicate and listen with people. And I was very self-aware at that point to say, I don't think that's my style. The way I've been in corporate for the last 28 years is going to work. So I laid the foundation through an incredible coaching problem called Awaken Coach Institute. And that's where I spent my time before I left. After I left is where I started thinking about more the operational pieces. And then about 6 months in, that's where I started thinking about what is my message really? What am I trying to tell people that my niche is? It's important to have a niche and to be really clear about who you're serving and what you're offering. Because if you're like, I'm just a coach and I can be a coach to anybody, it's not going to hook people. They're not going to feel compelled to work with you. There's not going to be that connection of, oh, that's the person that I want to work with because they're really speaking to me. So I did that a little bit later, and I kind of wish that I had thought about that sooner.
I love that you shared that. I appreciate that honesty because I think that that's a really valuable piece of advice for someone to hear that might think
Mhm.
about doing it. What's the thing that scares you the most as an entrepreneur right now?
That my message is just not going to resonate. That there's a lot of coaches. I know a lot of coaches are really good. We're not competing. So what I really try to work on with especially my individual clients, but also myself, is any scarcity thoughts or false beliefs. Because there's plenty of coaches and plenty of clients and plenty of organizations to go around for everybody. There really is, but you can get into a scarcity mindset really easily. You could also get into comparison. I use LinkedIn. That's my main tool. That's where people can connect with me and follow me. I post there multiple times a week. You watch what other people post and you think, should I post something like that? No. Understand your strength, your value,
Yeah.
your message, what you're passionate about, what's important to you, and stick to that. Don't compare yourself to other people and what they're doing, their company name, their cool logo. That's their thing. And there's plenty of clients and opportunities to go around for everybody. So I would say be mindful of a scarcity mindset, and it can really mess with you. And I see it with a lot of my clients. And then also really try to tap into when you're comparing yourself, what's the trigger? What's happening? And try to, what I do is I sit down and I journal. If I find comparison happening, I grab my journal, I sit down for 5 minutes. I redirect and shift my thinking. You don't have to write anything. You don't have to have a journaling practice. Some people don't like to do that. You can redirect within your own mind. You could go take a walk for 5 minutes. Get some fresh air. But really shifting away from those things, I think, is important when you're starting a business.
I love that because I think, you embrace the fear of what's out there and you're cognizant of it. So when you start to slip into those moments where all of a sudden comparison, becomes a big challenge for a lot of startup entrepreneurs. We're not good enough. We're not smart enough. I don't have a cool enough logo. I don't have, this type of website that is on par with theirs. I love that you're able to be cognizant of you slipping into those mindsets. And then I love how your advice is, drive that, by changing your environment or start putting that down on paper in your journal so that you can really look at that and dive into it. Because I find, especially, and, obviously, my coach mindset kicks off when I hear things like that. It's like, when you start to catch yourself, you're already halfway to the solution of solving it for yourself because at that time, you're able to identify it in the moment, which makes you just that much sharper when these situations come up. And when you're sharper, your confidence builds, your growth happens. And before you know it, you're like a completely different entrepreneur than you were even a month ago, 6 months ago. It's just such a powerful, powerful way to look at it.
Yeah, that's quite all right. I would, being mindful of false beliefs, false narratives, traps, and being able to catch them because we're human and we all get caught up in those traps and those lines of thinking that are not beneficial to you and that simply aren't true. I think is really important when you're starting a business because if you get caught in that, there's too many coaches out there. My offering is not unique enough. I don't think I'm out on LinkedIn saying things that people really care about. I don't have enough followers. That's another thing. If you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn analyzing and reanalyzing your analytics and impressions and clicks and how many people liked and commented, you're not using your time wisely. If you have a message, put it out there, keep on it, be consistent, and the followers will come. And it will just take time. So again, going back to that idea of being patient, that's what I would recommend.
Great, great advice. I love it. You know, Jen, I could talk to you for hours because we could geek out on so much of this stuff, and we will definitely have to do a follow up interview to this. But I want to be cognizant of your time, and I always like to finish up our interviews with a little bit of ripple, if you don't mind, a few ripple connection questions to give people a little bit of an insight as to who you are outside of what you do just from a coaching practice. So, what did the 7 year old Jen want to be when she grew up?
Oh my gosh, I wanted to be everything. So when I think about when I was a child, one day I wanted to be a lawyer. The next day I wanted to be an interior designer. I did want to be a psychologist. That was a common theme in my undergraduate degree is psychology, and I almost went into therapy work. And therapy work and coaching are not the same thing. Let's be really
Yeah.
clear. But connecting with people in a really profound way, whether it's their aesthetics or whether it's helping people in some way, is something that I wanted to do.
I love that. And what is the current version of Jen want to be when she grows up?
Oh, the current version of Jen would like to follow my intuition, really listen to my passions, and feel like I can kind of move with the flow and the tides a little more rather than I need to have this title. I need to have this much
Yeah.
income. I need to have, this look this way on social media. Really just finding an authentic version of myself as I go into the latter half of my life.
Oh, that I like that. I like that a lot. What is your superpower?
My superpower is brainstorming. Ideation is my number 5 strength, and individualization is my number 2. So brainstorming with one other person, I could brainstorm anything. I don't necessarily give advice. I like to think that I bring out ideas from other people. That comes in really handy in one to one coaching, but it also comes in really handy in a team environment as well. Generating new creative ideas of what have we not tried yet and novel ideas. Strategic thinkers tend to have a lot of new ideas and they feel really comfortable with just taking a little bit of risk. So I was comfortable in my corporate environment as a leader, encouraging my team, like, let's try this. We'll call it a pilot. If it doesn't work, we'll shift, we'll pivot. It's okay. So I think that's my superpower is I'm really comfortable with trying new things, encouraging other people to try it, and it's okay if it fails. Failure teaches us a lot. You can't have success without failure. We've seen a lot of, people, influencers saying that over the last few years. I don't know if people are truly taking it to heart. It's okay to try things. It's okay to shift. So I think that's my superpower.
I love that. I love that. What is your word for 2026?
Authenticity.
It's a good one. It's a great one. What is the
Yeah.
one thing you want to improve in 2026 for yourself?
Organization. You can see it behind me. I really want a very organized and clean office. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of books I want to read. So just paring down and really focusing on what's most important and the top priorities. That's me. I also need to clean out my closet, Steve. My closet's a mess. So,
I love that. Well, for those of you that are only hearing the podcast and you're like, well, what is she talking about? She's referencing something behind her that she's got a lot of books and paper, but that is the most organized backdrop I've seen in a very long time. So I don't think you're giving yourself nearly enough credit. It's very, very nicely done. So yeah,
okay,
I think you're already halfway there. So good job.
there are things in stores. There are.
Looks can be deceiving, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Last three questions I want to ask you. When you hear the words the ripple effect, what does that mean to you? What does that conjure up for you when you hear it?
I first visualize a ripple, and it's really you're in the center, and what you do, how you operate, how you treat people with respect and kindness, how you support people through whatever offering you may have, really ripples to so many people. right? Because somebody may have a really positive interaction with Steve, and then they go and have a positive interaction with the next person that they are engaged with because they're inspired. They're inspired by you and the way that you operate. So that's what I visualize is I can see the ripple. I'm a visual thinker, and I also think of myself at the center, and it's how many people can I impact with this one thing.
Great answer. I love that. And no doubt you are impacting a number of people. So I'm super grateful to know you and to continue to watch you do all the rippling that you're going to do through this venture. Let me ask you, what ripple could I be looking to create for you?
Oh, connectedness is my number 9 strength. I love to network and connect. It comes very easily to me. I connect other people and say, I think the two of you would have a really good conversation. And that's what Jen did for us. And actually, I was talking
Yeah.
to her and I said, I want to see your strengths report. I want to see where your connectedness is because it comes very naturally to her. She's a
Yeah.
great connector. She enjoys it. She doesn't need to be a part of the connection. She can take two people. So connecting me with your audience base or people you know
Yeah.
that you feel like there would be a good opportunity, that would be completely awesome.
Absolutely. Well, I can definitely do that. We're so grateful that you agreed to be a part of the podcast. And I think a lot of people are going to be very interested in your work, which is a perfect segue for you to share how you want people to find out about what you do and how to follow you.
They can follow me on LinkedIn. So my name on LinkedIn is Jennifer Jones Newbill. So it's my full name, but they can follow me. I post content and comment pretty regularly. I have a lot to say. Also, they can go to my website. It's newday-coaching.com. So my business is New Day Coaching and Consulting.
Great.
Yeah.
We will include those links for our audience so that they have those and can click on those and go find out about Jen's work. Jen, this has been an absolute blast. I am so grateful that you took the time to do this. I am excited to see where you go in the upcoming year because I know that you've got very successful opportunities that are going to be like coming, just dropping from the sky because you bring such energy and enthusiasm and you're just such a cool person. And I'm so grateful to know you. You're stuck with me as a friend now. So we're going to have to find some things to do this year.
Yes, absolutely. I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Guys, we'll be back with another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. But until then, Jen, ripple on.